Hello, and welcome back to Mr. Caro Plays FM26. Today we are going to look at player transfers. What we like, what we don't like, and what has changed since FM24. Hope you enjoy today's video. Today we are talking about transfers. Now, it is fair to say that on previous generations of FM24, they did do a lot to improve transfers over the years. So it is FM26 is pretty much an advancement to that rather than a completely refresh. Although in some aspects there are definitely new things within it. Now, this is one of the parts of FM26 that I actually would say it actually has been improved. Maybe not in as much as some of the aspects in the menu, although as you can see, I was hovering over recruitment, and you can see that now there is a dedicated section for shortlists, for staff databases, staff transfer activity, player transfer activity. The squad plan is still in there, recruitment focus, player recommendations, and so on. Everything is in there. One of the things that is new to this game, I hate the fact you have to hover over this, is transfer room. So if we go to our transfer room in, for example, now at the second, I am Morecambe. I am in the National League. Don't have a lot of money. In fact, if anything, I've actually got 4,000, spent 4,000 more on wages than I should have. That's not ideal. But the reason why that's perhaps interesting and such is if we were a team in the Premier League, for example, this screen perhaps would be more useful to us at this point. However, we can use it to demonstrate. So if we go to the transfer in, transfer room, you can see there's a nice fancy logo over here. Now, I have no idea if this is a real thing. I believe transfer room is a real thing. I don't know personally, but I believe that it is. So if we go create our requirements in here, say that we're looking for a striker, for example, in possession. We're looking for our striker. We're looking for our role. So we're going to go down to our center forward role in here, for example. And then we're going to go and we're going to say our age preference is 50. We don't need a 50. Say we want a 21-year-old. A bit of a not necessarily the most amazing age, profile in terms of getting a lot of options. However, we will do it for argument's sake, and we go submit our requirements. Now, what you'll see over a period of time is that those requirements will start to fill up. People will start to offer you players. Now, we're not necessarily going to see that today. We're going to focus more on the transfers out because it does give us instant feedback. But you can, just for demonstration purposes, you can do transfer in the same manner as transfer out. But I personally believe the transfer out in this particular context is much more interesting. And you can see responses, if you pass time, would fill in. And maybe at some point we'll do a later video kind of more specifying, being more specific even in regards to transfers in. But for this, we're going to kind of focus generally. And if we go to our transfer room out, for example, you can see there are a list of teams. And you can see they are looking for specific players. Now, where this kind of fails a little bit is that you can filter. You can see that I have actually filtered central defenders, but you can't filter out leagues, which is interesting because if you are a National League team, you could argue, and it is fair to argue, that a lot of League Two teams are not going to be interested in your players. That's a fair point. I would imagine most people would agree with that, unless you've got an up-and-coming player. And you could argue that a lot of those up-and-coming players you are not going to necessarily want to sell at this point. So it is interesting that it doesn't allow you to filter out leagues. Hopefully at some point they'll allow you to do that. But as you can see on the left-hand side, this is where it gets interesting. If we were to click on Accrington, for example, and we know that they want a central defender, I think what is good about FM26 is that your assistant manager seems to actually have a purpose in this game. For many years, I kind of wondered what was the point of an assistant manager, to be honest, because they didn't really do anything. But on FM26, they certainly do. And you can see that we are getting a few players in there. So it basically, it says, do you want to create a set requirement similar to Accrington? So if you were to do that, for example, it would do that in transfers in. You have two players that Accrington may require, and it's picking out two players. Now, both of those players are quite first-team players, so they wouldn't necessarily be something we'd want to do. But for the argument of the video, we're just going to click on one of them, Lundvik, and it's going to bring him up. You can see that he's actually pretty good. So he is someone that they are interested in. He's not someone we would be interested in selling. But for the argument of this video, we're going to go ahead and try and see what happens when we go offer. So if we go offer, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, Fansachetti to Accrington, it kind of follows a very similar path in previous FMs, where you can do the specification in regards to the fee, additional fees, clauses, and pretty much if you look at those, they are pretty much the same as they've always been. This hasn't changed drastically as far as I can tell currently. It hasn't changed much in that regard. So if we were to hit that, we can go down to our transfer list. We'll be transfer listing our player. If we wanted to go down that route, and then we would be offering our player. And again, it gives a little bit of feedback in here. We're going to offer that player to Accrington. Now, what you then see is in activity, it then brings up awaiting offers, for example. Yeah, so it's not instant feedback, but it is pretty cool that it is offering the player to Accrington. I don't know if any other offers come from other teams potentially. What we can also do, if we use this player as an example, if we go back to our actions, and like I say, it is fair to say that in FM26, a lot of complaints I've read is that it's hard to get around the menus. Actually, for transfers, to be honest, it is pretty standard to how it was previously. You can see it doesn't always allow you to offer market interest. However, I have seen that. I think I've found a player I can demonstrate that we can do a market interest on. So maybe we'll do that in a second. It's still got the hiring someone to help sell the player. It's still got that, which is pretty cool. I don't know, it may be, and again, it's not really offering, but you can set deadline. In fact, in FM24, sometimes I thought the deadline didn't actually really seem to do anything, to be honest. But I don't know if that's different on this game. I haven't really tried to sell anyone great. I have sold a few players, but it's like I am Morecambe, right? So it's not something I've done greatly at this point. But we'll get there. We'll get there as we progress. Maybe we'll sell some players. But yeah, you can hit confirm there, and then I'm guessing in a few days it's going to offer that up. Now, if we go to our squad and we go to our first team, I did kind of look at this earlier just to see if I could find someone as a demonstration. If we go to Paul Lewis, clunky menu, transitions suck. We all know that. It's very well documented. If we go to transfers this time, you can see that it does offer up market interest. It's interesting that this game doesn't offer that for all players at all time, because on FM24, pretty much 9 times out of 10 it did. So I don't really understand why it doesn't. However, if it does offer up, like so, pretty much the same as the previous game. It does give you a few more details in this box. These pop-up boxes on large can be quite frustrating, but actually, when it comes to the transfers, like I said a little while ago, I actually think it is improvement, to be fair. I can't knock them for that. I feel that it is actually an improvement on transfers and how you can quickly, in theory, sell out players if you wanted to. So we can go desperate. I don't know what the difference really is. Basically, essentially, nobody's interested. So, but if they were, obviously, I believe the message would populate like it did in previous versions of FM. That hasn't changed, which obviously is great, I guess, for people wanting a similar experience. Have changed so much. It's nice that they haven't changed that. If we go to our clauses, it's pretty much the same deal again. You can see there's a couple clauses in there. It's effectively the same, just a slightly different view of the same thing that we saw in previous FM. Thankfully, there's not a pop-out menu, which is fantastic. And really, to be honest, other than recruitment budgets, again, is very similar. And again, this is a pop-out menu. Maybe people like this graphic. I don't hate it. I don't like it. I have no opinion on it, really, to be honest. At this point, it's pretty much the same, just shown differently. Don't know what to tell you, really. I quite like the interactions on the side. It's a little bit... this game, unfortunately, for me personally, is a little bit soulless, but with that kind of element, it's kind of cool. Player recommendations, I don't know if I'm going to have any. I don't, because I've already gone through them, but that's where you'd find that. Player database, pretty much the same as player search. It's a little bit clunky, in my personal opinion. This is a nice toggle button, I guess. It's kind of how you can get to the scouted players. So they've kind of got rid of one screen and put it into two. I don't hate that, if I'm honest. I think that's not a terrible thing. Obviously, with this, you can do your custom filters. I feel like the default filter, maybe it's my screen size. That is a lot of text in a small space. Don't love that. That's just me. Perhaps some people won't hate it. I feel they've changed them. They've definitely dumbed down this section here. Feel like there were more options in there. I don't know if that's a negative. For some people, maybe. For me, I don't really mind either way. Again, it's one of those. So if we click OK there, and then the kind of final place in recruitment that is regards to transfers, like I say, there are many other options we can look at. We will look at recruitment objectives in a second as well. But if we go to overview, it's really just the overview of the transfers, and it's one of these screens, to be honest. This is a cool box, the contracts. Don't hate that. I will do a larger video on this in or bigger video on this in the future. But that's actually pretty cool. I like the fact this isn't necessarily new, but I feel like it's presented in a nice way on FM26. Like I say, there are some things that I actually quite like. I realize the Steam reviews have tanked. I feel that's unfair in some aspects and fair in others. I don't think it's the seventh worst reviewed game on Steam personally. I feel like it's better than that. But I can understand why people think that. It's just personal preference. Some people like it, some people don't. People that don't like it are more vocal than the people that do. I don't hate this screen. I don't think it's going to add anything. It's kind of cool, I guess, in some aspects to gather everything together. I think the final thing we'll look at is recruitment objectives. And essentially, yeah, I guess it's really just what the team is preferencing, much like it used to be. It's just shown on a different screen. Do I hate it? No. Do I love it? No, not really. It doesn't really add anything to my game, to be honest. That's just how I view it. It's worth pointing out, I may do a video later in this week, could be next week. So it could be around Wednesday, Thursday, the week coming up, of my view on FM26 in general. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to try and put it together this weekend and we'll edit it and we'll see how that goes. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Hit the notification button to see when the new videos are released. Thank you and goodbye.